Oh, it's live now. Get my beer going.
Oh my gosh, you have the Archetype and Arches collab. That's so good.
Represent. Yeah, I ran into a funny story yesterday, having a late lunch, early dinner, as I like to call it, with my friend Mary Fiorello. Ran into one of my neighbors, Carrie Charles, who just happened to have all of these in his car. So I thought it would be appropriate to drink this today as we
all the accounts he didn't get to visit, you got all their beer.
I mean, I have to represent for the panel.
Absolutely.
That's a good mix. I'm jealous of that.
Let's be professional now, guys. Okay. So, everyone, welcome to the Speed Mentoring panel of the Crafted for Action Craft Beer Con. My name is Rebecca Royster. I'm co-founder of Dames and Drags Beer Festival. Super excited to be moderating and joined by some lovely individuals here. So I'm just going to briefly introduce names and affiliations, and then I'll let each panelist kind of talk a little bit more about themselves. So joining me today, we have Chris Hughes, the beer connoisseur, an influencer. You see she's waving to us, or they're waving to us. Sorry about that. We also have Caroline King from Bitch Beer Podcast, also influencer and very popular in our craft beer community here. We have Jessica Miller from Reformation Brewery. She is the creative director there. Justin Ramirez from Arches Brewing, head of brewing operations. And we have William Moore. He's the chief of operations for Down Home Brewing. So with that, maybe we'll start with Chris. And please tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and why you wanted to be here with us today.
Hey everybody, I'm Chris, aka the Craft Beer Connoisseur. Here in Atlanta, hailing from Florida originally, but been a part of the Atlanta beer community for a couple years now. Kind of got into the craft beer game about 6-7 years ago, just as someone who was interested in beer and learning more about it. And over the years, I've done a lot of things. I've done beer internships, contests, attended festivals, events, all types of stuff just to leverage my love of beer, and then kind of grew into a blogger and also an influencer. So a lot of my time is spent going around to breweries in my local area that don't let me pay for beer, that always cover my tab. That's one of my favorite things to do. And also drink beer with my girls from Craft Women Connect, which is a collective that I'm a co-founder of, also with Jen Price, that we founded about 2 years ago. And since the world is back open, doing beer collaborations, connecting with women in my community who have a like mind when it comes to craft beer. And I forget your last question. What did you say your last question was?
I think you kind of said.
I think I said everything.
Like why you wanted to be part of the Craft Beer Con today. I mean, I feel like.
Oh yes, well Jen made me do it. If anyone wants to know, I really didn't have a choice. I just was forced. I wanted to be a part of the Crafted for Action beer conference. This is something amazing, epic, and something that's great coming from one of my peers and great friends in the community. So any way that I could be a part of this to give any of my knowledge about craft beer, or to be a part of, a welcoming experience for anybody who's interested in craft beer, more than happy to, do it and be a part of it. So very glad to be here.
Thank you. Let's go into Caroline. Caroline, why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Caroline King. I am the founder and host of Bitch Beer Podcast. Bitch Beer Podcast, which is also Bitch Beer is officially trademarked now. Very excited about that. And so Bitch Beer Podcast, it is a podcast about making the world of craft beer more female friendly. So I started it 3 years ago with the intent of learning about craft beer. I didn't really see any podcasts or materials out there that were more centered towards women. So wanted to create that space. I am not a beer expert at all. I heavily rely on my guests, which 3 of the people in this have been on my podcast already. Shout out to Chris, Jess, and Rebecca. Very exciting. Justin and William, invitations always open. And so Bitch Beer Podcast. And then also I am the CEO of Cinema Life Film Festivals, which is a collective of 8 film festivals in Atlanta, Chicago, and shortly on to Louisiana next year. And then what was the last part of the question? Why do so Crafted for Action, Jen Price asked me to do it. And I was very excited because she came on my podcast to talk about Crafted for Action. And afterwards she was like, well, I didn't want to put you on the spot, but would you like to be? And I was like, yes, whatever you want. I'm there.
Yeah, I feel Jen kind of elicits that response from most people. Like when she asks you to do something, it's almost like, of course, always, because you just know it's going to, whatever it is, it's going to be really wonderful. And just happy to be a part. So thank you for that, Caroline. Dames and dregs. So we're going to continue with the dames and go on to Miss Jessica. And we'll save our dregs for last.
Hello, I'm Jess Miller. I'm the creative director with Reformation Brewery. And under that title, I do a whole lot of things, including design for labels and print materials, web graphic design. I do photography, manage social media. I design and order all the merch and do like the email newsletter and basically anything online or under the creative umbrella I have a hand in. And I wanted to be part of this like everyone else because Jen asked me, but also because Atlanta Craft Beer Week has been kind of non-existent for a while. There have been efforts come and go, and I've seen those. And so it's great to see this coming back in such a meaningful way and to have it be led by a Black woman who's so supported and connected to the local community and brings such a diverse range of voices and unique perspectives. It's real value. It's pretty exciting to see it makes such a comeback. I think Jen has wanted to downplay that this is just the first one, but it's a pretty badass first attempt, in my opinion. I don't think I'm the only one who thinks that. So it's awesome to be invited to be part of something so meaningful and well put together. So I'm just happy to be part of it, even on the fringes.
Awesome. That's couldn't agree more with you. This whole thing, virtual live event. It's just really, really quite wonderful. So thank you for sharing and for being here with us today. Justin, if you don't mind sharing a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, totally. So my name is Justin Ramirez. I am head of brewing operations at Harches Brewing. That kind of means I do a little bit of everything. I do recipe development mostly. I deal a lot with logistics, managing beer going out, ingredients coming in. I now have taken on some front of house things under my belt. So I manage a little bit of front of house staff and what the tap room is doing as well. I kind of deal with how everything really connects from the brewery to the tap room to the market. I work directly with our sales manager and everybody else and just kind of make sure everything's flowing really smoothly. There really isn't a limit to what I do. We have a lab manager and we have everybody else, but I, for the most part, can do a lot of other people's jobs in the absence of them being able to do things. As far as why I wanted to be a part of this, much like everybody else here, Jen asked me to do it and I signed a blank check and I was like, yeah, whatever you need, I'll work whatever panel you need me to do. Jen comes in a lot and she's always really supportive of what we do. So absolutely, when she asked if I could help, I was more than happy to help any way I could.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, it sounds like you're a very busy person.
I'm still at work.
Yeah, I kind of remember some of that life. So awesome. Thank you for sharing. And last, but definitely not least, William Moore, if you don't mind telling us a little bit about what you do and why you want to be here today.
Yeah, sure. So, hello and good evening to everyone out there. My name is William Allen Moore. I am Chief of Operations of Georgia's first African American craft beer company, distributed since 2017, Down Home Brewing Company. And I want to say hello to everyone out there. As Chief of Operations of a very small craft beer company, I find myself similar to Justin, where I have my hands in a little bit of everything. So, in part of some of the QA QC when it comes to the beer that comes in and out of the brewery, all the way to in some cases having to be representation, brand ambassador for Down Home with multiple companies all over everywhere in Georgia and soon to be other states too. That'll be an announcement a little later on. And then also really finding myself helping to be the liaison and the connector and networker between our brand with Down Home with many entities and organizations all over the state of Georgia to assure that individuals are exposed to our company, but then also getting the best quality of beer from us as well. The reason why I am here, I helped, Jen helped me bury a body about 3 years ago. And so she said, you owe me a favor. And I was like, well, hey, why not be a part of this? I'm joking, like everybody else's story. Jen is absolutely amazing and fantastic. And it's like, why not be a part of such a wonderful, great initiative that's going on? And she's awesome. And anytime Jen can, cash in a favor from me. I have to say, too, Jen is a genius. Like, what perfect way of celebrating your birthday by doing a conference so everyone has a reason to celebrate it for a whole week. Jen, you are my hero. You are absolutely a genius thinking of something like this. It's just a mad genius. Like, you're awesome, Jen. So, yeah, great to be here.
Awesome. Well,
also shout out to her parents for having her born during Craft Beer Week. Like, perfect.
I mean, I'm not sure they had that foresight, but it is fairly serendipitous for sure, given her love of craft beer. So yeah, let's dive right in. So just to let anyone who's watching know, I'll ask a couple of questions and we'll take up about 20 or so minutes to really get some insights from these wonderful panelists that we have here today. And then we'll open the floor for questions if anyone has questions. I'm assuming I'm going to see it pop up, which would be fun, and I'll try to read those. But yeah, just to get started, kind of to the basics for our panelists. Why the craft beer industry? And I'll let anyone jump in and go first if you want, or I can select someone if no one wants to go first. But what really got you into this industry? I'm going to call on someone.
Sorry. Well, I don't mind going first, Rebecca. So it's funny. I have been exposed to beer for almost all my life, but it was a fun thing that I decided to get into because, like a lot of people, started off as a hobby. I got a Groupon eons ago for a homemade beer kit that my mentor and now CEO of Down Home showed me how to use, but he like scaled it up. So we actually were cooking on like some homebrew equipment versus my crappy stove in my apartment at the time. And so from there, it just became like just this big thing of realizing that this is something that, one is like for us nerds, is science, right? It's all chemistry in a, location, and you're just experimenting and experiencing different ways that you can modify things, right? And creation for people who like to cook like myself is cooking, really. That's all it is experimenting with a whole bunch of different things. And so when you have the opportunity to take something that's kind of a hobby and then it can expound into something that could be a part of your career and even profitable, it's always fun to do it with something that you can see yourself doing for a long time, and where it in some cases doesn't feel like work. It feels like you're just having fun and getting paid for it, right? But it's also very important, I think, amazing that now we're seeing this beautiful renaissance, if you will, of people of color and women in craft beer and in this scene. So I love that we are in this like kind of golden age where everybody has a seat at the table, or even has the resources and materials to create their own table if they want. So that's what I'm loving about it, and I'll let others chip in or as well of their own experiences.
I could go next. Yeah, I feel like craft beer is very approachable. It's one of those things where I feel like craft beer is one of those, it's so accessible now. And especially when I started the podcast, I mean, 3 years ago, the craft beer scene has changed so much even since then. So making it, and just the type of people that are consuming beer and brewing beer and on site. So that's one thing that I really love about the craft beer industry. It's just one of those things where it's not quite like, you know, don't get me wrong, I love my wine, but, you know, it's not like I'm meeting with a bunch of sommeliers. It's, you know, I'm, you know, exposed to craft beer and just the environment. I feel like everybody has kind of a brewery in their neighborhood, especially here in Atlanta. And so it's just, I just really love the people that I get to meet. Everybody's very welcoming and appreciative of people being supportive. So yeah, it's a very supportive community. It's I know everybody in here personally, and I feel like all of us could walk into any brewery in Atlanta and have at least 5 friends. So it's pretty great industry.
There we
Rebecca,
go.
there we go.
Mute. Just talking away. I actually wanted to ask Jess also, because we go pretty far back, like to I think I met you before you were at Reformation, and you were doing your own blog. And I would be curious to hear more about like what brought you into the industry and kind of your trajectory.
Yeah, it's kind of a complex question. It's hard for me to answer simply, except like the easiest answer is just that, you know, I love beer and it tastes good, makes me feel good, and it makes other people feel good. And I think when you feel good, that you get an opportunity to kind of be the most open version of yourself. For me, I'm kind of shy and naturally sort of haven't been in situations like you get to experience when you're in a brewery. You know, there's sort of facilitates friendships, you know, I think that you wouldn't normally get the opportunity to have. And also there's something unique about the craft beer industry, I think, in that there's, especially in the South, still a lot of novice, like it's still new-ish, meaning, and this is probably applies everywhere, but you can become an expert pretty quickly because you know more. Just by virtue of doing your own studying, very rapidly you become expert, so to speak, in the industry, and that can be good and bad. You know, there's people who believe themselves to be experts, and then people who actually know things. But I don't know really how to explain that, except I personally was drawn to the industry because it allowed me a lot of creative opportunities. I got to sort of flex my creative talents and contribute something of value to people while also kind of bringing myself value. You know, I think that when I was taking photographs, which I was doing blog for a long time, trying to be a freelance designer, photographer, the attention that you have to pay to do that well, I think is a kind of currency, like a value. Our attention's always being pulled away from us, from social media and from, you know, from everything, all the distractions, the news, whatever. But when you create something, your attention is paid to that thing, and then you get to re-experience it again later. And I think that gives something back to you that's kind of intangible. Like being able to look back at photographs that I took or a story I told about an experience I had made me feel different in ways that I had never felt in other jobs before. So like alive and passionate. I
Yeah,
still
I think
feel that
with
way.
blog, there's a certain vulnerability
Mhm.
with like putting your words out for just the world to read and to experience, and same with pictures. So I can
I think you get to play a role, like as a blogger, you get to put on a persona of an expert. You can walk into a room and say, "I'm here. I'm a blogger. I'm going to take photos," and there's instant value in that for brands, whether you know something or not, because your experience and your impression that you take with you from that interaction has value. So you don't have to know anything about beer. You can be valuable just by being a consumer. Your experience and the impressions that you take with you from that experience are valuable to brands. So I don't think we should underestimate really anyone who walks in and is like, I'm gonna write a review, or I'm taking my impression with me. I'm gonna let everybody know.
Yeah, and I
I
think
love that.
it kind of speaks to the inclusion that we're starting to see more outwardly. I don't think that there was anything previously that was necessarily like the industry was not inclusive. It's just now there's more, it feels to me at least that there's more where that's spoken more, and that breweries and brands are actively engaging with communities to be more inclusive. And I'd love to hear Chris talk about that, and how, because I mean, you guys are doing really awesome work with Craft Women Connect, and the beer connoisseur. You guys are you're kind of all over, and I would love to hear more about. Onto my next question, like what specific steps did you take to kind of get to where you are, and these brands and platforms that you're building are today?
Well, a lot of that kind of started off with me just self-educating with craft beer. When I first got into craft beer, nobody taught me anything about nothing. I just was kind of getting introduced into beer in general, and came across a good craft beer and didn't know what the difference of it was. And since I enjoyed it and I didn't realize beer could taste like that, I started just visiting a local beer shop and just kind of going through one by one and just picking up different styles of beer, drinking it, not knowing that my Crown Royal glass wasn't really probably the best glass to be drinking with certain styles of beers, but it's okay. Over the years, though, what ended up happening is that, as you guys have noticed too, craft beer started, I guess just opening up, becoming more diverse. You're starting to see, a plethora of people of color, a plethora of women in the industry that, maybe people didn't pay attention to before. But also just kind of grooming myself into some stuff kind of made me come across, different people. When I'm going to beer festivals and I'm like the only Black person or Black chick out there, it's like, it's only inevitable that I bump into somebody else who looks like me. And we are like, oh, well, hey, let's go around and try beers together. And that's really how the journey kind of starts. It was myself, and then bumping into that one other person around here that may look like me, because it's not usually people who look like me at beer festival or in breweries or attending these events. And then, it's kind of more of educating other people on things. And then that became my job out of nowhere. Hey, Chris, I need you to tell me about beer, and I need to know this and XYZ. So all of these things are being thrown at me without really just me having the choice. And then I realized, okay, well, there's obviously a reason why you don't see many faces of people who may look like this in certain places. And what can we do? Because I've always enjoyed my experience with craft beer. It's always been great. So with that mindset just kind of being developed and shaped without my own free will, it just kind of pushed me into using my resources as someone who's a blogger, or someone who's interested in craft beer, to educate others, to bring people together, and to let people know that there's a lot of people out here who love beer just the same way you do and didn't know crap about it at first, and we're always experts, and we're all of these people who are elite in the beer community. So what we do at Craft Women Connect in particular is bring women, anyone who identifies as a woman, all together. And what we try to do is make sure that, if there's things that women want to learn when it comes to craft beer, having hands-on experience with brewing, want to connect with other women who are into beer or meeting up places and all of that, we just try to make a home for that and let women know that, hey, there's a safe place for this as well. If you ever want to have these, uncomfortable conversations with somebody who says, hey, I hear you, or whether it's, hey, I need some people around to like, help me with my journey, wherever it may be. So that's where, I hope that answered your question about a little bit of inclusion in craft beer community and how I've kind of supported that and how I've stepped into it. And I love it. It's amazing. And I think breweries right now who have already been doing the work are seeing a lot more things to say, okay, we think we've been doing the work, but are we really doing the work right? Where are better ways that, we can support so that, our entire brewery really does look like how we feel inside, which is, truly just love for everybody, because there's a lot of love in craft beer. Keep all the hate, racism and politics out of my beer. Just give me great beer made from love, and I'm there.
I love that. And good times. And because you've been to Dames and Drags and you have worked with us and helping us to just have like a wonderfully inclusive event where you just see pictures and it's like a sea of all different colors of people and women, men, and everyone. It's just so it's so great. And but we can have these sometimes uncomfortable conversations that need to happen, but coming from a place of just a safe space with beer, because the entire point of beer, from my view, is just to bring people together, to come around to the table, to have just to enjoy each other's company. And so anything that we can do to really promote that is really wonderful. Justin, I would like to ask you, how did you get to be where you are as all of the things that Arches beer related?
So I'll try to keep it short. I used to be in the military. I was in the military for 8 years. Towards the end of my military career, I got interested in homebrewing, and I started homebrewing, kind of like how Will got started. I think everybody that gets into the industry kind of starts at this place. They find an interest in homebrewing. They learn about the science and what comes behind it. And they just fall further and further down the rabbit hole of, how deep does this go? I got out of the military and I got a job at a brew pub in Little Five Points called Wrecking Bar Brew Pub. People in the industry who know, they just know. And I came through Wrecking Bar at a time where there was a lot of awesome brewers coming through there. All of us have gone on to do really cool things, and we're all super happy that we got the opportunity to be there and kind of do proving grounds at Wrecking Bar. It's a small system. It's a 7-barrel system. So it offered a lot of forgivability. It was a secondhand system. So, we kind of made it our own, and we learned a lot doing that. So I was lucky enough. I got to go through. We were doing cask. We were doing barrel programs. And I learned so much. It was like drinking through a fire hose. Just perfect opportunity. Arches was looking for another brewer. They didn't know that they needed me. They just needed somebody to fill a space. I just happened to, I actually live 5 minutes away from Arches. So perfect time, perfect place. I ended up here. My job interview was a double decoction on Southside Lager on Christmas Eve with Jamie on their 20-barrel brew house that they had for 2 months. And I started asking questions, and Jamie didn't have the answers, and he was like, this guy actually knows what he's doing. And here I am.
That is awesome. Curiosity, having healthy curiosity is really important, I feel.
Absolutely.
Just being, in this industry that styles are forever changing, breweries are forever opening up, and I feel like we all are just deeply, deeply curious. Oh, I have a question. Oh, that's very exciting. So Nikki Bryant just asked, what are your guys' favorite beer styles to brew and or drink?
Who wants to go first?
You.
Well,
or Chris jumps in.
Well, everybody who knows me knows I love sour beers. You want to please me, throw the flowers in the trash, bring me a bouquet of sour style beers, bring me some Berliners, bring me some Gozas, bring me some Flanders. Anything sour is right down my alley.
But the flowers in the trash, though, you can't get flowers.
I don't want no flowers unless it's
to me, I like
hibiscus inside of my goza. Put the hibiscus in the goza. I don't need the real stuff. Just give me the beers.
That's
man.
Who's next?
Me, I love a good traditional. I mean, this is probably hanging out with Justin so much, but I do love lagers, pilsners. I like really get surprised by beer all the time because I think like, oh, maybe I don't really like this, but then I'll try like a really good like wet hop IPA. I'm like, this is great. So I try not to discriminate between beers, but yeah, like as far as like my go-tos, it's got to be like a good classic like lager, pilsner, or even like a wheat beer. I love a good wheat beer.
I'm with Chris. I love sours. I'm a sour girl. I also really like stuff that's in the wine territory. So barrel aged stuff that's in the wine direction, oak aged or red wine barrel aged, things like that. Really, really get me excited. And I also really love imperial stouts. Just a dark classic.
That's me right here.
Yeah, all day long, every day. I would tap into that if I had one, which frequently I do.
Justin and Will, what about you guys?
Anytime I get that question in any of interviews I do, I like to play a fun game of fuck, marry, kill with my beers, and that gives you kind of like the thing of where I am with certain things. So if I were to, I don't even know if I can cuss on this thing. My mom may be watching. So I would.
We're all grown. Yeah. We're all grown. Sorry, Mom. Sorry.
So, and I got this game, by the way, by Dr. Bronner, Denise Bronner, who's on. Shout out to Kinky Suds. And I got this idea, and I always play this game on there too. Okay, thanks, Jen. She said I can cuss. So I would fuck a IPA. I'm a slut for a good IPA, like a nice, especially New England style IPA. I'm busting it wide open, and I have no shame in that. I like to marry a nice Belgium strong ale because my first introduction was with a nice Belgium strong ale, and it just threw my whole palate off, and I absolutely loved it. But I would kill a sour. I have really bad indigestion. Sometimes I drink sours and then wake up the next morning and have to take Tums. I'm sorry, Chris, but those sours can go to hell. I would definitely kill them, and I said what I said.
I don't know what kind of genetic makeup you have that something as precious as a sour beer would be hurting your body like that, and not something as harsh and astringent as an IPA. But
I'm pushing 40. My body don't work the same way like it used to. I used to smash a sour, no problem. Get close to 40. I gotta prepare myself. I gotta take my pills. I gotta have my alkaline water ready. All that stuff, you know.
Chris is saying it is something wrong with you, Will, obviously, because your body is not receiving them. Y'all are getting feisty in here.
It's personal, bringing genetic makeup into this.
I love it. All right.
There's no speed mentoring going on right now.
Mine is way more boring than everybody else's. It depends for me. It depends what I'm doing. It depends where I'm at. If I'm here at work, obviously we make a lot of lagers, so I'm usually drinking a lager. I try to stick to hoppier stuff. I like hoppier lagers over the malty stuff. A lot of the guys here prefer a lot of the maltier, the box, the Dunkels. I like a good like contemporary American Pilsner. Some of our lagers that are hoppy tend to be on the hoppier side. If I go anywhere else, I'm drinking somebody's fucking IPA. We don't make a lot of IPA, so I'm out there trying everybody else's. But that's just, I do appreciate the sours. For y'all who are digging on them, and especially like the barrel age, like long term, took from this barrel to the wine barrel to this to that, like those I always absolutely appreciate. Like if somebody's doing something crazy, food or fermented, something like that, those are delicious as well, and I always freaking spring for those. So that's where I'm at.
I have to throw this out there for Chris, since y'all do the collabs. Someone put in the chat that there's.
Yo, I saw that. Dibs.
Throw out the flowers, bring me the sours, or something of that nature. I feel like, yes,
let me write that down.
Throw out those flowers and give
always
me
ready
flowers.
to take notes.
Yes. That is your next beer name, Craft Women Connect. on this podcast. Boom, there
That
it
would
is.
be an amazing collab. Oh my gosh, I want in on that. I want to come with Craft Women Connect does that. That'd be so much fun.
Hey, Chris, let me know what fruit to order. I'll get that on.
Hey, you know what? I need to talk to you then. Get me a real hair, little funky, pungent something.
One question I wanted to ask, because this did come up, is about mentors. And if any of you have a mentor, and how did that come to be? I know Justin and William both mentioned having a mentor. I don't know if Chris, Caroline, or Jess have a mentor, but mentorship is really important. So if anyone can share anything on that, that'd be great.
Actually, I'm currently taking a class at Georgia State right now through their Small Business Development Center. And I do have a mentor through that program. The Small Business Association has a ton of amazing free services that you can sign up for. All you have to do is call, and their main saying is that it's your tax dollars at work, because it's free for you to go in there. If you have a business plan, or even if you don't have a business plan, you have an idea, something that you want to put into action. They have a Smart Start class that's really, really great. And then they do partner you with a mentor that you can meet with at least once a week. And they'll go through like different calls to action and steps that you can take with how far along in your business plan that you are. It's incredibly helpful. I recommend it to absolutely anybody. I just started probably about 2 months ago, and it has completely changed the direction and model for my business in so many positive ways. So I highly recommend doing that.
Carolyn, can you throw that the link or resource in the chat for folks? Because that sounds amazing. Yeah.
It's incredible. I highly recommend it for absolutely anybody, anyone and everyone.
Justin or William, would y'all want to talk about your first?
Yeah, I've got some. I mean, I was lucky enough to, like I said, come through Wrecking Bar at the time that I did, and get to work with the people that I have. But honestly, like, you know, this kind of ties back into the question you asked earlier about why craft beer. That's the thing about this industry is like people don't hoard information. There's no trade secrets. Like nobody's keeping their like biggest, darkest secrets. Everybody just tells you everything. You hang out in a group of people who work at a brewery, and they're all telling their secrets. Like, here you go, this is what I did. Like, there are no secrets. I mean, really, you find the people who you like to hang out with in the industry, and they will tell you everything that they do. People love to talk about what they do and talk about your thoughts on it, and everybody loves to exchange ideas. And I think that's probably the coolest thing about this industry is like there's no shortage of mentors. Everybody could be a mentor, and really it's up to you to kind of sift through the. I mean, I think Jess said this earlier. Like, there's some people who think they know a lot, and maybe they're just not learning. But there's no shortage of information in this industry. Like, there's a lot of people out there who have so much information to give, and you should really hear everybody out. There's mentors all over the place. You just have to ask.
And we had a question that popped up regarding mentorship as well. And the second part of it I thought was interesting. Like, what does it take to be a good mentee?
Oh, I have so many people reaching out to me asking for help too. Come prepared. So know what you are actually wanting from your mentor. Your mentor's time is incredibly valuable. So be sure to treat it that way. So if they give you a plan of action and they give you steps, make sure before the next time you meet, those steps are taken. Because otherwise you're really just wasting their time, and time is I know it's kind of cheesy, but time is money to them. So be prepared, know what you're asking, what you're looking for, and really, and also don't be afraid to ask questions too, because that's what your mentor is there for, to answer questions and help you along the way.
And to piggyback on that, I would also say, in addition to those things, you also want to make sure that anything that your mentor offers you, that you're also able to make it applicable for yourself. It's always great when you can find your natural fit into things, So ideally, when you have a mentor mentee, a lot of people think that it's kind of like the mentor is trying to make a carbon copy of themselves, hence why they are mentoring, their mentee. And in a lot of cases, that's not the case. What's ideal is that when you're the mentee, you take what the mentor is giving you, or the advisement, any resource provided, etc. But then you critically think at it and you say, how can I apply this to myself? And what skills do I have that I can maybe embellish, if you will, some of these, advisement that I'm getting from my mentor? Because you want to make it your own. Use your natural skills that you have so that you can flourish in that way and essentially become your own person versus a carbon copy of your mentor.
Yeah, that's great.
I don't have a formal mentorship. I don't think I've ever experienced that. But informally, the other women in the industry have definitely inspired me and guided me in my decision making as far as career decisions or ways I present or interact with, others to grow in my own field. But just to sort of build off of what Will said, my bosses obviously have provided mentorship and guidance, but I think one of the things that really helped me level up in the last couple of years is realizing that if you're trying to please the person that's not you, then you're missing something. Like if you're not happy with it and you're not pleased first, then you're really not going to ever make anybody else happy. So if you're always trying to hit, oh, this will make them happy, you'll never really get to the best level that you can reach because you're always trying to please someone other than yourself. If you're not taken into account, if you're not also pleased by the work, it's not the best work. It's been weird to kind of realize that because I, grew up in a culture where you're supposed to make everyone else happy. But, me first, and then there's benefits that kind of ricochet out of that. So just what Will is saying totally rings true.
Actually, that kind of can segue into my next question. I have a couple. So I want to actually start with the women first and just say what challenges have you faced in this industry? And how have you overcome some of those? Because I think when you do start taking that mindset of being your own advocate, trying to do things for yourself, that definitely can come with some pushback. And we know we've seen a lot of women. We see more women than we did certainly 3, 5, 7, 10 years ago. But so what are some of those challenges that you have experienced?
Oh, I guess I can start. If I have to be honest, one of the challenges I've kind of experienced, just kind of being in this industry and stepping into things is fear of being in places and spaces with people who don't look like you. I can honestly say there hasn't really been anything else that, I've experienced challenge-wise with maybe connecting with breweries or working with them at the end of the day. So for me, it's always, for a while, it was puzzling to me as to why, I don't see more women, more Black people, more LGBT community or whatever it is in the craft beer industry, what it is. And then why is the reason? And then when I realized, okay, it can be a very intimidating space. It's a lot of big bearded, burly white guys who are kind of all in the place, and it makes sense. But that's probably was one of my, and has been one of the only biggest challenges I had with being in the craft beer community and industry. Is a fear of, will people actually acknowledge me? Will people actually even care to be decent to let me know stuff about beer? I mean, we get mansplained as women all the time. You may walk into a place, and people may think that just because they don't see people like you often, you don't know anything about beer. So it was just fear. And I realized a lot of people have fear that unfortunately motivates their decisions and reasons for doing things. So that's why I try so hard to make sure that, I use my platform and I try to, step in as a beer influencer in the way that I can to let people know, hey, you go to these trusted places, I promise you you'll have the greatest experience ever, even if you're scared to walk in these places. As a matter of fact, I'll go with you. Or when you go in, tell them I sent you. And I want people to know that, shake the fear, go in, walk in first. And you'll really love and really just embrace those experiences that you have with craft beer because it's so community based.
I love that you said that, Chris, and I would love to piggyback off of that because that is exactly what my biggest challenge was as well, myself and my own fear that I didn't fit in with this group. Beer was too cool for me, and I just really I had such a hard time getting the confidence to even like walk into a brewery and be like, hi, so I have a podcast and I mean, shout out to first off, everybody in this seminar, because oh my goodness, all of y'all have been so sweet. And of course, the fear is within ourselves. Like I think my first brewery that I called was Wild Heaven, and Eric answered. And I was like, hi, I have a podcast and I was wondering if I could interview. He's like, oh, you want to talk about our beer for free? Done. Let me send you Sarah's info. And everybody. And then Rebecca, you and Luis, y'all asked Bitch Beer to host Dames and Dregs before we even had 200 followers. And Jess, y'all had us at Reformation before we even had like a 500 followers. I don't know. And then, oh my gosh, Chris, like you came on the podcast before, like we met you at our first ever beer event and you were immediately like, I love this podcast. This is so cool. So, and like Justin and William, y'all have been so amazing. I remember, meeting William at one of our first beer events. And then of course, Justin geeking out over some wood that's in Southern Belle and explaining every little detail of the beer and not mansplaining at all, like very detailed. It was really cool. So I love that you brought that up because it is a challenge, like feeling like you're going to be accepted and then really seeing like how great everyone has been amazing. And I still struggle with it. I still struggle with like, oh shit, everyone's going to see that I'm a total fraud. Don't know what I'm talking about. Like, but everyone's great. So I thank you for bringing that up, Chris. That's a really brave thing to say. So I thank you for opening that.
Thank you.
For me, I wasn't ever really afraid to be in a brewery because I guess I just have an attitude like take it or leave it. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But I definitely have struggled with what Caroline was saying with the imposter syndrome, and being able to step into your own power and to own the fact that you are in charge and that you're leading this thing now and you can come to the table with like a vision, and more times than not, no one else has any plan. And so your vision becomes reality very easily. And I think consumer all the way up to the top, people don't really realize how much power they have, and not necessarily in like a bossy kind of way, but because there's definitely a lot of give and take. You have to, when I have a vision, there's always like with a grain of salt, like somebody else may have a better vision than me. And that's awesome. But I would say that's been one of the biggest challenges for me, is just realizing my position of privilege and how to leverage that in ways that benefit others, that bring other people into positions of power where they can then become the deciders, because it's not really that important to me that I make the decisions, but empowering other people to take ownership of that, especially because I don't want to be doing all the work, and as you become more of a leader in your own workplace, you have to let go. You have to be able to say, as long as the work gets done, it's done. It's not the way I would do it, but that's the point. I don't want to be doing all the work. So just empowering other people to take ownership of those decision-making processes and feeling like you have the people around you that are going to push everything forward and make everything better for everybody.
Ooh,
I would say
amazing. And I think it can tie into what you might talk about, William, because it says, what was your most spectacular failure in beer and how did you recover, or what lesson did you learn? So it kind of ties into challenges and how you overcame those. If you want to touch on both of those, that'd be great.
Yeah, kind of. because I was going to say I constantly kind of struggle with the implicit and unconscious biases that occur in our industry and craft beer, and those that I have myself as well when it comes to craft beer that I'm constantly trying to work on. Those, that unconscious bias of that, oh, well, a person is a person of color or a woman, etc. And immediately all of those things are, there in the industry, and you have to kind of like chop down or shoot down one by one, and you have to kind of be cognizant of that, especially when you're talking to individuals about, possible collaborations, about expanding your business, about moving into realms or areas that, they may not know up front, but in the back of their mind just realize like, wow, I am assuming this thing about this person, but not realizing that I am. And so I really do think like implicit and unconscious bias is probably one of the biggest challenges that we have in our industry overall. And then the assumptions that come with that as well. I'll tell you guys a quick story that I've told many times on other channels, but when we first came out with Down Home, we have Chris, who's the CEO, his grandfather on the can. He's a black man, so we have a black man caricature on the can and everything. And in looking at social media and everything, one of the comments we kept seeing is, "Man, these white boys lost their mind. They done put a black man on the can of beer, and we cannot believe this." And we're like, "Hold on, wait a minute, we're black." But again, the assumption was that only a certain type of people made beer, and this was way back when and before it started expanding. And when we went in and we actually started telling the story, we started being more visible, people started seeing us, then they were like, oh, okay, these are black men making beer, and not what we assumed were, as Chris said, Christina said earlier, the bearded white guys doing this. Like, no, this is actually people of color doing this. And it's so funny, when you, and again, I still get that a lot of times when I talk to people and everything. I have a very European white sounding name, William Allen Moore. You put me on a resume, you have no idea what I look like. And even when I talk phonetically, you may not know what I look like. But then when you see me, it's like, oh, okay. Okay, I didn't realize that. Or you may see other credentials like, okay, Morehouse College, lives in Atlanta, that gives away certain, ideas of like who that person may or may not be. But the key is really trying to make that more and more prevalent in our industry, so that years down the line, someone can see, any of us and not make the assumptions or not think that we aren't qualified to do, the phenomenal things that we're doing right now in this industry.
Wholeheartedly agree. That's awesome. Yeah. And the can story, that's really funny. That people just made assumptions. But I think maybe, I don't know, maybe where we are today, some of those assumptions wouldn't be the same, just because we do have a much more expansive and diverse industry at this point, from even when I kind of came on the scene like 2008. So it's been really exciting to watch all the changes and the growth that's happened in Georgia, but even just in the States, also like in the US as well. So Justin, do you want to talk about your most spectacular failure?
Yeah, I can't link those two things. The original question you asked and the most spectacular failures, all of mine are like brew house related, and they involve like dropping a flashlight in a boil kettle, or like how did the flashlight fare after being in the? It actually worked.
Oh wow!
These things happen.
Justin, please tell me you named the beer like Flashing Lights or something like that, and it was a test batch.
That's another here and there. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure everybody who's worked in a brew house, even people who have like showed up for collaboration brews, or Pink Boots brew, or anything. Everybody's got a story of like, oh wow, like this thing happened. We have no idea why, but it's a thing. Who knows? Yeah, I don't know. I don't have one particular that stands out. I think to your original question, it's really funny. I read, you were asking the question. I've had a conversation very similar to this with two other brewers who I've never personally worked with, but I know personally. And we had very similar experiences in the industry. And I can only relate it to my military experience where I did a job where I didn't have a lot of people who looked like me. And I felt very out of place in social settings. You go to a festival and everybody else doesn't have the same experience as you, and everybody else doesn't do the things you do, and doesn't like listen to the music you listen to, and doesn't like think the way you think. And it's very, very, it's a weird space to live in. You guys are absolutely right. The industry is changing, and there's constantly more and more people coming into the fold who have different opinions and come from different backgrounds. And I think it's really cool to see. I think it's cool to see all these people coming in and being able to contribute in meaningful ways. But yeah, it was definitely weird for a while. I've been in the Atlanta brewing space now since 2014. So what's that? 7 years?
That's what I don't know.
Yeah. So and it's crazy how fast things change. Just in those 7 years, how the names have changed and the numbers of breweries have expanded exponentially. Now there's no shortage of breweries opening up. So it is really cool to see a lot of new faces and a lot of new opinions and backgrounds coming into the fold and bringing a new perspective.
Yeah, agree. And I will say I think pretty much everyone on the panel here today knows that I used to sell beer, and just from 2014 when I did that to today, I think the thing that I am the most excited about is not getting the question, I mean, do you even drink beer? And it's just like, yes. Why is that? Like, I'm here to
run a beer festival
about these products because I want you to bring this into your bar and like put this on your menu. I feel like there are other questions we could address in our time together, but yeah, I mean, I have a vagina, I know, but I still can drink beer, right? That doesn't limit my beverage selection. So,
Rebecca, do you find yourself acclimating more now in maybe environments and places, or do you find kind of now that you're kind of comfortable and you got your stride going and everything that you kind of are like, you know what, let me reclaim more of my identity and let people kind of move towards me, if that makes sense?
I think it's more of the latter. I mean, certainly, starting out at the Porter in 2008, that was a very different time in craft beer in Georgia. There just weren't as many craft breweries around. I even think just the dynamics of like what you could do as a brewery in Georgia, like having tours, like you were just so limited in how you could engage with your drinking community. So yeah, I mean, I've totally grown up in this industry here, and yeah, at this point, very comfortable in my own skin. And but it's also so comforting that when I go to places, I just see just more people who look like me, whether it's woman, LGBTQ, people of color. Like we just have a much more expansive, visible community. And I would even say, like, even in 2008, like going to parties with my friends, we were drinking craft beer. You just didn't see us out as much. And that wasn't, I wouldn't say it was at the forefront of the industry. And I think more today, you just see more people than previously. And there are lots of things that I think have contributed to that, including just the number of breweries that are available and how every neighborhood now has some sort of craft brewery. So access is much easier as well.
These kids have it too good. We had to struggle back in our day. These kids have it way too easy.
There is definitely some truth to that. So I guess as we're winding down, the last thing I'll ask is what if you could give one piece of advice to people as an expert in the industry, what would that be?
I was going to say that I've had a lot of failures and they've all been spectacular, and that failure is necessary and you have to fail over and over in order to get to the success that you're looking for. And that if you're not failing, then you're not doing the work. And that really what's going to set you apart from any other professional in the industry is not being halted by the failure. Just keep going, because it's the failure that gets you to where you want to be. And without it, you never get there. So I fail regularly. I'm Googling all the time. How do I, whatever, fill in the blank. You can be a self-made individual in this industry still. The knowledge is out there. If you want to learn, nobody can stop you. And you are going to fail. So you have to plan for that and sort of like celebrate it when it happens, because that means that you're on the right trajectory. You're doing the right thing. Otherwise, you're not, putting the risks out there if you're not failing. I mean, if you write your brewery's name wrong on a label and it gets printed and put on a can in the market, that's my biggest failure recently. So
it really happens to everybody. Like,
I was like, I'm doing that 6 hours a day and doing labels and doing the online store, and a label went out, and we got told online about that. I was like, yep, that was me. I did it. We're not who we are. We're in COVID.
Yeah, UPCs and barcodes are just as insidious. They'll get you too.
Terrible. They're terrible.
Well, mine's is simple and sweet, and this is coming from a blogger influencer perspective. Always make sure that your glasses are clean before you take photos, because people will shame you for them. And make sure you know how to pronounce your German style beers. Craft beer connoisseur signing out.
That is wonderful. That is a wonderful piece of advice.
I love
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Like Jess
go
was.
ahead, Will.
Oh no, shit, Carolyn, please no. My mother raised a gentleman. Ladies first, please.
Oh, you're so sweet. No, but I was just gonna say is in order to grow, you can't be comfortable. So part of growing is failing and being uncomfortable. So make yourself uncomfortable, put yourself out there. And also, yeah, biggest failures. Jen Price was witness to one of those. I had to call her because I was like, hey girl, remember that interview we did? It disappeared along with my external hard drive that just crashed. So I had about 5 weeks of episodes on there ready to go. And it happens. It happens. But you know what? Like that just, it ended up having an even better interview with Jen and was able to talk about Crafted for Action and everything. So, even if your external hard drive crashes, you can still do it.
William, Justin, one of y'all get
Yeah, a wise man learns from the mistakes of others. Just learn, keep learning, understand, know, and continue to grow. Always bring yourself to it. In a lot of cases, you may have to, find yourself assimilating, but never lose the true core or identity of yourself. And don't get high off your own supply. I mean, beer is addictive. For every one beer I drink, I do 60 minutes at Orange Theory Fitness to try to burn it off. But I'm to this point where this beer belly is a lion's mane of sorts. It's very beautiful and muscular underneath all the flubber. So, just be careful when you're consuming. Drink it, enjoy it, but run some miles and drink water too.
I think Jess covered the best piece of advice. You got to make a lot of mistakes. We're currently we have nobody in the brew house right now that came from a brewing background. So everybody's kind of coming up through cleaning kegs and then moving up from there. Guys who are working in the brew house started cleaning kegs, and they made a lot of mistakes along the way, and a lot of frustration on my part of trying to teach people how to do what it is they do. I think the second biggest piece of advice after that is probably to understand that like you will never know everything. This industry is so vast. There's so much information. There's always history that you might not know about, or, you know, maybe some other style that like you might not be familiar with. There's always more to learn, and anybody who says that they know everything, they have no idea. They haven't even scratched the surface. There's always something to learn, and you should always keep an open mind.
Well, with that, I think we will wrap. I would just love to thank everyone on our panel. You guys have been wonderful. This has been a great conversation. Absolutely want to thank Jen Price for putting this together. This whole week has just been full of awesome events and discussions. And I think these types of conversations are just so important to helping my dogs, you hear them, sorry. So helping our industry just grow and thrive and really live up to what it can be, just a big happy table of people drinking beer and having a great time. And yeah, thanks to my dogs, Bruno and Rosie, because before just now, you didn't even know they were there. They were really good for this hour, and I'm happy about it. So that's it. I don't know how we stop this or what we do next.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you.
So
See y'all
excited.
Friday.
This was so great to be included on a panel with everybody. I love everybody here, and I look up to all of y'all. So I'm really, really grateful. So
Carolyn, I'm gonna reach out. I want to be on the podcast, please.
done. You got it.
Bye, guys.